Hey, what gives? I thought you had a satellite dish.
Sure diddly do. Over 230 channels locked out.
I want to do a follow-up video on this in-house cable thing that I've been working on. Originally did a video for the 24/7 Simpsons Raspberry Pi shuffler. Then a couple weeks ago I did a video for the retro weather channel. In between I added another TV show shuffler. This is just sort of the miscellaneous TV shows. And I did a video that started all that when I found this Channel Plus 3025 RF modulator. It takes two AV, composite AV signals and will modulate them onto whatever channels you want, almost like a very high range of UHF or cable channels. Since then, I went on eBay and bought another one because I liked it so much. And this is the 3024. They're almost the same. It's just the 3024, the switches are inset on the side versus on the bottom here, right there. And the 3025 is more limited on the channel range. I think it'll only go up to like channel 35 for UHF and then 80 something for cable. But that's fine because all of my channels are under 30 anyway. What I also did is, this one didn't come with a power supply. I was using a 12 volt. I thought it was maybe causing some audio issues, so I went and found a proper power supply. This came with one, but it was really old and, held together with electrical tape. It worked, but I didn't want to leave it plugged in long term. So I went to my local thrift store and bought two 15 volt 1.5 amp power supplies that I've just kind of mounted here with pieces of metal, old eaves trough and whatever this is for, but they're held in here nice and solid. And I did have to splice the correct barrel connector on them because they came with one that's slightly too small, but these have been working great, and I feel like they're more reliable than the stuff that at least this one came with. Then I got all my wires dressed, got the power supplies. This is a Raspberry Pi 3. These are Pi 1s, the B models. So the Pi 1s run off of this guy, and then the Pi 3 actually runs off of a power supply that, I can't remember which site, one of the Raspberry Pi supply sites, I think it's the Canada Pi or something, I can't remember, sells like a specific power supply for it, so that's what this one is. And then we go up all my coax. So I had to take the antenna boosters, a 10 decibel booster that I normally run my antenna through, and I was finding that this was creating enough noise just by amplifying everything when it went into here that it would drown out these channels. These would lose reception, which is interesting because the manual for this one states that they recommend you use a inline booster before connecting an antenna to it to meet FCC regulations. But I'm in Canada, so anyway, I had to take this out. So I'm running the antenna directly in, and then I'm running the non-amplified output on this out and then into the antenna input on here. I got two outputs being used on the second one. One goes directly to my living room TV just so I get the clearest signal. Then one goes over to my splitter for the rest of the TVs in the house. You follow the coax. It's a little messy. That's the distribution throughout the house. And there's my splitter. And then that covers 3 channels, weather, TV channel 1, TV channel 2. This one here is my security cameras, my NVR. So this has a VGA output, and I have that running up and over to this VGA to composite adapter, and this powers off of USB. So I just ran a power cable back and plugged it into the powered USB port on the NVR, and it just has a composite video out that I kind of haphazardly ran a cable down here, and security channel. I kind of want to add a third media channel. I feel like this is getting a little silly, and I can't find any more of these for sale. But I might take the security camera channel out and add. I've got one more Raspberry Pi B model, the original B. So I might add that. I'm thinking like old school Warner Brothers cartoons, Bugs Bunny and Tweety stuff. We'll see. And I did want to show this off because I'm actually kind of proud of this. I wanted to figure out a cheap and easy way to mount these. And I looked at little plastic cases and, did mounting and stuff like that. But the problem is they're different, right? And if I buy another Pi, it's going to be different altogether. What I came up with is I have these little nails that came with an IKEA bookshelf that has that like thin backing that you nail on. And a couple of them I didn't nail the backing on. So I had extra nails. I just nailed them in the pattern of the holes. And then with some side cutters, cut the head off, slide the Pi on, and just sort of bend them outward a little bit. And it sits perfectly. And if you want to remove the Pi, just squeeze them in and take it off. And like I was trying to rack my brain on maybe getting like plastic nylon spacers and then screws that would go into here. But I'm looking for wood screws that are also thin, that'll bite nicely into wood, that are also thin enough to go through the tiny Raspberry Pi holes. Pi hole. That's actually another thing I'd kind of like to set up here. It'll just be a wall of Raspberry Pis as far as you can see. But yeah, just wanted to show how these are mounted. I'm kind of happy with that because I didn't like before where they were just sitting and hanging on wires and just a big mess that could fall at any time. And one note, I am going to be doing a tutorial on how I set this up at one point. I haven't forgotten about that. It's just I haven't had time to get to it yet, and I got some improvements I want to do to this first. But I will answer any questions anyone has on Reddit or YouTube about setting this up. I just haven't had time to do like a proper tutorial on this yet, but it is coming. And so I want to talk a little bit about how the Raspberry Pi shuffler has been going. The color looks really washed out on my phone. It's not that way in real life, although the TV does have some discoloration here. The degauss feature on this TV doesn't work for some reason. Anyway, it's been working great. The only times I've had to reset it are when I've moved it around and actually turned it off. So it hasn't crashed on its own at all. The one problem I've had, and I've been reading that this is a bug with Kodi on a Raspberry Pi, sometimes when it starts playing a new episode, there's no sound. And it doesn't have anything to do specifically with that episode, because I'll see that episode come up later and it has sound, and it works perfectly fine. They're all encoded exactly the same. The issue seems to be that sometimes Kodi, when you play a file, it just has no sound, and people say, oh, I just hit stop and start again and it goes away. Well, I can't really do that on this, so I just change the channel and come back later when it's working. So this one's working right now.
Grandma really likes it when
And here's the other channel. And this one does the same thing. This one has locked up on me once in the middle of an episode of something. This is just random episodes. Seems to be favoring C-Lab lately. It did lock up playing a file, and I never verified. I just went downstairs and reset it. I never verified if it was actually a bad file and that I could have just hit stop and started the shuffle again, but this one has locked up once, and that's once in like a month. The weather channel, I have some updates to do on it. I still haven't put any sound or music to it yet, and it will, I have to figure out, well, I'm not really much for knowing programming and stuff like that. My code right now doesn't refresh the data. So right now I just have it restarting every day, but that means that this forecast or current temperature is only valid for when it restarts. So I'm probably going to be updating the code at some point to refresh this information and refresh the RSS feed information. And the other issue is I have a little thing that calculates how many characters, because this moves by pixel. So every, 5 milliseconds or 15 milliseconds, it moves 1 pixel over. So I need to align how many pixels it needs to move in total before it resets versus how many characters are in the string when it pulls it in. And I think I have it a little off because it'll go all the way and just stop and just wait for a while before restarting. So that's just me. I got to kind of revisit and work out some bugs. But again, this is working great. It's still doing its thing, making burn-in for TV screens. And one thing, the channels have changed a few times, and it seems to be dependent on whether they have audio or not. So, for example, if the channel above has audio, then the channel below will get a bit of interference from that because I only have them one apart. So, for example, channel 22, the weather channel, if that had audio, channel 20 gets a little bit of squiggly line noise. So I might reshuffle them once I put audio in there and make them work a little better again. It's like an ongoing thing. Some channels seem to get interference from outside, like maybe there isn't a TV channel on there, but something out there is causing UHF interference. And when I go to the higher numbers, there's lots of noise. And I was doing some reading, and I guess originally UHF in North America was channel 14 to 83. And I think sometime in the late 70s or 80s, they shrunk those down to be channels 14 to 69 and then used the higher channels for things like cell phones when they started to come out and communication. Used to be able to hear cell phone conversations on like the high 80s UHF channels, as you'd hear like a couple seconds of an audio conversation before it would shift again because they would hop around with the old analog, like original cell phones. And since the digital transition, I noticed that they've shrunk down the range of bandwidth allowed for UHF channels even further. So I think that means that those high channels in the 50s that I was trying to use are now used for something else, and that's why I'm getting noise on them. So it's kind of an art to figure out where everything goes. But overall, I've been pretty happy with this, and I thought I'd just kind of give everyone an update. And that there will be some updates to the code on the weather channel as soon as I get around to going through the code and figuring out how to make it auto refresh the data. And I also want to look at finding a way to play audio. I'm thinking that an audio stream, an internet stream, might be a little unreliable. It might crap out and need to be restarted all the time. So part of me was thinking about just getting a little FM or AM radio and just tuning it to a music station and piping it in there. That's another thought too. Or putting local files, maybe getting some local music and having it shuffle the files, kind of like the Pi shuffler with Simpsons, only in the background with just audio. So those are all ideas I'm thinking about. I haven't really decided on a solution yet, but I'm open to ideas if anyone's got any cool suggestions.